around the sidelines filming. I'm pretty sure that ST just broke the sound barrier. Ah. Do you feel like Back to the Future? Yeah. How far did you go ahead in time? Too far. Too far?
So, I don't really know how any other way to put this, but that the car, in filming the previous video about, you know, how it was running great and amazing, shortly after that on the freeway, I didn't get it on film or anything just because it was just a sucky moment. I just didn't really feel like I wanted to film it just because it was just really a downer. But one of my coolant lines, it was for my heater core bypass. It actually blew off of the head. Whether or not that was my own mistake or because of what happened behind the reason why it blew off, you know, is beyond me. But besides the fact that the coolant hose even blew off, the thing that's even worse is the fact that the head gasket also went, which leads me to believe that the head was lifting when it shouldn't. And unfortunately, I was misinformed, and I feel like everybody in the community should know this. I just unfortunately am suffering the consequences of not, you know, confirming that it was a good idea or, you know, I should do it or not, but I should have looked into it and debate or, you know, seen whether or not I could actually use the ARP 2000 grade head studs, you know, multiple times. So I talked with my tuner from Purple Drank Tuning, and he's telling me that he never suggests using those specific head studs just because of that reason. They don't really stand up to the same abuse that, you know, a better head stud for this car would allow. So I'm going to be going with a better head stud and a head gasket. But before that, I kind of want to look into the engine and see, you know, I mean, if worst case scenario, if something bad did happen in the event that the head gasket decided to go, or if it was just a simple, you know, the head lifted, because when it went, the car was not overheating, the coolant was okay. I was monitoring coolant temps before the event happened. So once the hose blew, that's when the coolant started to go up, the coolant temp started to go up. But before any of that, the car was acting fine. I did smell coolant after every hard acceleration. I smelled a little bit of coolant. So, you know, it could have just been a slow leak, if like building up to that moment where the head gasket finally gave and the head lifted enough to where it was going to be able to give. So I'm just really frustrated. It happened yesterday, and I've just kind of had some time to think about it and deal with it in my brain and figure out a game plan, figure out what we're going to do, what we're going to spend the money on. And, you know, and yeah, it sucks. And, you know, I hate to see the car the way it is again. It's going to be taken apart all over again. But, you know, it's going to be, I mean, I said it was going to be worth it in the end last time, but knowing that I'm going to have literally no excuse for the engine not to work as it should when I'm finished with it anymore, again, for the third time it is now. And I once heard a saying, you build it, race it, break it, repeat. So a lot of people have just been telling me it's just a part of the game, part of the hobby. You know, things do break, things do go wrong, you do make mistakes, and, you know, it's just a learning lesson. And it's something that can be passed on to viewers who are, you know, interested in doing the same thing with their cars so that they don't have to run into the same issues I am currently in right now. I'm gonna go ahead and take all of the spark plugs out, and it was cylinder one, right? I don't know where it happened, where the event was, but cylinder one has coolant in it now. So yeah, I'm gonna start getting the head off for I think the third time or the second time while it's in the car. But I'm gonna start getting everything taken apart again, and we're gonna get into the diagnosis of this thing. Water's clear. Now that leads me to believe that the cooling system has, stayed intact, at least, to this extent, at least to the radiator. I don't want to take the head off and see a bunch of milkiness inside the oil chambers, but I guess we'll get to that point. You guys saw how much water came out of the oil pan, so I feel like that was just from the catastrophic event that happened on the freeway where the hose blew. It was this hose right here that I had reattached. This is a bypass for the heater core. So that hose actually popped off, and then I'm assuming that's when the final blow was that took out the head gasket. So I believe it was just, a progressive failure. So, it started to fail because I did smell coolant as the day progressed. As I was doing pulls, I smelled coolant more and more whenever I did a pull, and it was knocking pretty severely. So I have a feeling that there was already water, in the chamber for quite some time now. And I noticed occasionally too, when I'd go to start it up, when it was cold, it would smell like something was burning, almost like, there could have potentially been water in the combustion chamber. And I looked down spark plug hole number 1, and there's definitely a pool of coolant on piston number 1, and then there was a little bit of moisture on cylinder number 2, so it could have just lifted on that whole side of the head itself. And I think I might take the head to the machinist again just so he can double check it for warpage, because I really don't want to go ahead and reinstall this knowing that it's warped or something bad like that. So I'm gonna keep going. I don't really have much more to go. I just got to take the manifold off, vacuum pump, and then the high pressure fuel pump. And then, well, the whole timing covered business is kind of time consuming, but getting it all off isn't really too bad. Just got to jack the engine up and take the mount off. So as you can see, it's sort of a mess. Coolant kind of sprayed everywhere when the line flew off. So you see on the top of the turbo some residue, coolant residue. It's just a mess, and it really sucks, but I guess it's part of the game. At least I know how to do it, and I'm showing you guys what to look out for.
Fifth made.
All right, so over the past, I'd say week, I've kind of just done some things while things have been coming in. I'm still waiting for oil, and that's it. I actually sent the head over to the machine shop. The head, it had a slight blemish. It was right in this area right here. Or it might have been, no, it was this area right here. It was a slight blemish. But I took it to the machinist, and you can't even tell that the head gasket actually went. So he said that all he did was set the blades, do a single pass, and this is what it turned out to be. So it wasn't even anything to really worry about. I probably could have gotten away with just scrubbing it off, but I'd rather do this and get it resurfaced and, you know, double check just because. So I'm gonna, you know, work on getting this back on. I know you guys have, if you've been keeping up with the channel, you've seen me take apart this engine and put it back together, I think twice now. So I'm not gonna go super deep into putting it back together. But in the past week, let's go over what else I've gotten. So these are Speed Performance's 625 plus head studs. I just got those in a couple days ago. And as you see, I was doing some soldering, which actually could have something to do with a faulty reading for my map sensor. So if you remember when I went to Delicious Tuning, I had to tap into the signal wire for the map sensor. And I was using crimp connectors instead of actually having a good solid connection. So what I did is I practiced my soldering. I kind of got, you know, some practice. If you see, I was just messing around with some wires. It was actually the first time I tried soldering, and I just wanted to practice because it's a good skill to have when you're trying to do stuff like this, clean it up a little bit. And as you can see, the routing for the not the stratified, but the split second, it says stratified, but this is the split second controller for the aux fuel, the extra 2 injectors, which here's the 2 plugs for the injectors, 1 for each. Obviously I have the extra 2 injectors, not the 4-port. But what I'm going to do is either I'll cut these and kind of shorten the length of the wires just to kind of clean it up a little bit, because I implemented the split second harness kind of into the OEM harness to make it look a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these, shorten them up, just kind of clean it up a little bit, maybe tuck these wires into the loom so it'll just clean up the splice connections that go to each coil pack. And I didn't really want to mess with those because they haven't actually given me any issues. And I did clean up some wiring over here. It was a little, you know, it was kind of a cluster over here. A lot of weird green wires, blue wires. I just wanted to clean it up, make it look good so that when I put everything back in the car, it's going to look as best as it can. But yeah, so got the head studs. We have an OEM Ford gasket. I'll go into why I decided to go with an OEM gasket instead of using a SuperTech again, which, yeah, it did fail. So when it comes down to why it failed, there could be a multiple number of things. I believe I went over in the video, or the beginning of the video, about the studs, the ARP studs, which are now on this block right here. So I had torqued these down to 90 foot-pounds, and I was unfortunately misinformed that you're supposed to torque these to 90. So the correct torque spec that I was told after the fact is 70 or 75 foot-pounds. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I over-torqued these and I used them twice. These cylinders actually start to, you know, distort a lot when you start reaching too much torque on the studs themselves. So yeah, we're gonna follow every single detailed instruction from Speed Performance for these ones. And I went ahead and I cleaned the threads extra good. I'll show you right here. I utilized one of the old ARP studs as a thread cleaner, or like a thread chaser. So what I did is I just notched the threads to kind of give room for debris to kind of wedge itself in this little crevice. So that worked really well. I'm gonna go through each of the threads, the thread holes again, just because I wanna make sure that this is going to be perfect and it's not gonna give any reason for the studs to stretch or do anything weird or start to spin or unthread from the block. I just want it to be perfect. I don't wanna have to deal with this anymore. This is the second time I've actually had to pull the head off while the engine's in the car. One was for the cracked head, and then now for the blown head gasket. So now we're here. So anyways, You can't even really tell that the head gasket blew right here. So this is where it was all black. It kind of had a lot of buildup right here. There's some buildup. I went ahead and cleaned each cylinder around the combustion chamber just to get rid of any potential hot spots from the carbon buildup. Before I put the built head on, I went ahead and cleaned the pistons, and they're still clean. I just scraped the top of the pistons with a little flathead, made sure all the gunk was gone. So yeah, I'm just gonna start throwing everything back together. I kind of just wanted to let you guys know that the failure point, in my belief, was either the studs or the wiring job that I had done for the map sensor, which that could have, I mean, I didn't test it with the multimeter, but it could have been throwing the boost numbers off as the RPMs went up. So it wasn't actually showing true boost figures, which my tuner was notifying me that we were having a weird boost taper. So I soldered that. I'm not really stressing about that map sensor connection anymore. What we're gonna do though is when we start driving the car again, I'm gonna just verify that when we're driving it, it's not gonna spike anything over 28 pounds. So that's what my tuner told me to do. Yeah, I'm really satisfied with how the head came out. It's really nice. I'm confident that what I did is going to fix the problem of the head being able to seal. These head studs are what I've been told by my tuner and his builder is that with the combination of these head studs and using the OEM gasket, you could see up to 40 PSI boost figures. He said that he's tuning a car right now that is running the same setup and it's seeing 40 pounds of boost, which I mean, there's no way to know for a fact that this car was seeing 27 pounds or 28 pounds, which is what target was. But, you know, it's a learning lesson. I just wanted everybody to kind of know that, I mean, I guess these head studs aren't bad necessarily, but you just have to be informed correctly on the proper torque specs. Do your research, do your extensive research on head studs because they are a significant component and a fastener in this entire assembly. Obviously, they hold the head to the block, but overlooking something as simple as, you know, 20 foot-pounds difference or, you know, not chasing the threads, not getting them cleaned properly, and just everything comes into play when you're talking about these and being able to secure the head. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more passes with this in each hole here, and basically just thread it in. And then as you unscrew it, as you thread it in, it'll pick up debris. And as you unscrew it, it'll also pick up debris. And then once you've gone through all 10 holes, you go ahead and spray brake clean or some sort of cleaner, surface cleaner into it, and then blow it out with compressed air. And then while you're threading everything, while you're threading the stud in, use WD-40 to kind of help loosen up anything that's in there. And then once you do that, you should be good to install the new head studs. So yeah, I'm going to, well, first I'm going to unbox this head gasket just to show you guys the difference between the OEM and then the SuperTech, because this gasket looks totally different than the OEM gasket, and I can see why this one is recommended over this one. All right, so for anyone who has never seen an OEM Ford Motor Company head gasket, here it is. So one thing I noticed right off the bat when I first got my hands on this was, you see that layer right behind the layer with the sealant on it? Let's see if I can point at it with my hand. This layer right here. So if you spread these layers, these multi-layers, you can see it's a separate ring that pretty much encloses each cylinder. And I'm really confident that this construction, yes, it is thinner, but it has all the sealing in all the right places, only where it needs it. And I don't know, in my opinion, comparing these two, I'm gonna put my trust in the one that, you know, was made for the car. And this is a Molle head gasket. So same as the pistons, I have Molle pistons. So I mean, it only makes sense. And I've been told numerous times that these actually hold more pressure than, you know, something like a SuperTech, or I've been told Cometic is actually really good as well. But my tuner specifically told me that his builder recommends these head gaskets, and paired with these studs, I think it should be a pretty good combination. And I really, really, really hope I don't have to split this engine again, because if I do, I'm probably just gonna take it out and start from scratch, because kind of tired of dealing with this, and I'm pretty sure you guys are tired of seeing this car in pieces. So for those wondering whether or not the block was damaged or, you know, warped through this whole entire process of blowing the head gasket, I already double checked it with a straight edge and a feeler gauge, and I couldn't even fit 2/1000ths of an inch underneath the straight edge, so I didn't even continue to try to go lower than that. I mean, I'm confident that this did not take any hits, serious hits at least, because I mean, obviously you see that the head barely suffered anything, if anything at all. And yeah, I just kind of went over it real quick with engine oil and some brake cleaner, and then very, very, very lightly went over it with Scotch-Brite, very lightly with oil lubrication, you know, making sure that I wasn't pushing on it too hard or going too hard on the surface. But I think, I mean, if you look, I think that this is a nice fresh surface. I mean, for it not being hot tanked and it being in the car, you know, as is, I am confident that this will work and we won't have any issues. Yeah, so the goal is to make it super easy for these studs to thread in, just like this. You know, but no effort, little to no effort for these studs to go in. Whereas before I started clearing the threads, it was actually pretty difficult. And the only reason it starts getting a little bit more difficult towards the end is because you're compressing all of the WD-40 that's in there. And then when you take it back out, you're creating a vacuum underneath the stud, which is kind of resisting it from coming out, if that makes sense. So yeah, so see, it's there, that little, I don't know if you heard that little, that was the suction underneath the stud. So now you just take it out, and all of these should be clean. I'm just doing this out of precaution just before, because I really don't want anything bad to happen anymore with this car, or this engine at least. So take it out. See, look, nothing, no debris, no, doesn't look like anything bad in there. So I'm just gonna go through the rest. I already did these right here, so I'm just gonna continue, and yeah, we can get the new head studs in and at least get the head on tonight. All right, so now comes the part where we're gonna install the head studs. So these actually come with instructions. We have here the correct amount of foot poundage right here. So it's gonna be a final of 80 foot-pounds. It goes 3 times at 35 foot-pounds. You loosen it and then you torque it again, loosen it, torque it again, loosen it. And then you follow 25, 45, and then you get to 80. So I'll leave the picture of those on the screen if you want to pause the video. But yeah, I made sure all of the stud holes were cleaned. There's no debris, no more cleaner in it. They all look, you know, you can see all the way to the bottom, and the threads are all cleared out. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting these ready for installation. They say to dab some oil on the tips of the studs, the bottom parts of the studs, when you thread them into the block. And then they also come with ARP, or I think it's ARP lube. Yeah, ARP fastener semi-lubricant. I fortunately have a big container of it, so I can just, you know, use that to coat all of the washers and the tips of the tops of the studs. So yeah, I'm going to start installing these. You know, I'll show you. You just dab a little bit of oil and then throw them into place. Another really cool thing about the OEM gasket is that there's little to no play because of the dowel pins and then the actual gasket holes. They're like super tight, so like there's no way that this gasket can move any odd way, shape, or form. It's gonna stay in exactly the same place that it's supposed to, you know, at the factory. So I feel really confident that this was a good decision, and I'm really excited to see what it can do. So I'm gonna get the head on, and then we'll start with the clamping of the head studs. As the theme has been for the entirety of the video, we are correcting our wrongs here. So before, when I first originally built the engine and when I installed the built head, I lubricated the entirety of the washer, and that is actually, I did some research, and that's actually not what you want to do. The only portion of the washer that needs to be lubricated is what's making contact with the nut itself for the stud. So when you're installing the washers, you want to make sure that there's no lubricant on the side that's going to be making contact with the head, because you don't want the washer to spin, because you want all of the possible loaded pressure from the clamping force of twisting the nut to be applied to the head and not wasted in twisting the washer. So we want to lubricate the top sides of the washers and then install them with dry bottoms onto the head. And then as for the nuts, you lubricate this bearing surface. That's what they call it. It's a bearing surface because it rubs up against the washer. So you're going to want to lubricate that. And then also, oh, and here's the ARP lube that I was talking about. You can just get it at O'Reilly's or any parts store. But if you come to the head, you'll see the studs sticking up right there. So you're gonna want to lubricate the top thread portion of the stud itself. That way that the threads are lubricated, so that when you go to install the nuts, it'll be, you know, good and everything will be smooth. So it's kind of funny looking at the ARP 2000 nuts in comparison to the 650 plus. I mean, it's comical. I mean, yeah, they are the same bolt, or they are the same stud thickness. They're 10 millimeter stud in thickness, or diameter, I should say. But you can see there's a ton more, you know, I guess total clamping force or total surface area with these nuts than there are with those ones. So excited. Let's get cracking on this. All right, so now we're at the point where we can start torquing down all the nuts. And I've already gone over the pattern, but I'll go over it again. It's just like if you can imagine like a spiral, it's pretty much what you're going to be following. But it's this one, 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 and this one. And then that is the sequence that you're going to follow for all of the torque steps here. So yes, we are going to torque it to 35 foot-pounds 3 times. So we're going to torque it down to 35 foot-pounds, loosen them, torque it down to 35 foot-pounds again, loosen it again, then torque it down to another 35 foot-pounds, and then loosen it once again. And then after that, we're going to be going up to 80. So it's going to go in sequences of 25, 45, and then final of 80. So there's a lot of tightening, loosening in this sequence, but they say it's well worth it just to guarantee that everything is going to be bottomed out, everything's going to be as tight as it should be. And once I torque this down, I'm actually going to wait an entire day to go back and re-torque them, because I heard it's always a good idea to go back with these engines. It's always a good idea to go back and re-torque the the studs and the nuts. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Yeah, it's really hot and it's gonna get really, really sweaty. All right, so it is the next day. I just got off of work not too long ago, so I'm gonna get right back and cracking on this. So I did off camera go ahead and retorqued, or just went over all of the studs one more time. I've heard that, you know, it's a good idea to do, and when I did it, I actually got a couple, like, small amount of degree of turn out of each and every single nut. So I feel like, you know, it should be safe. I know some engine builders, they get the engine to operating temperature while, you know, I mean, there's different ways of doing that. You can get a block warmer or a block heater that just goes through the coolant system, or you can, you know, stick the engine in an oven, get it up to, you know, operating, what it would be operating temp, and then let it cool down, and then go ahead and retorque all of the studs. But I don't have that option. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could put it all together, run the car, get it to operating temp, take it apart as fast as I possibly could, and then, you know, retorque the all of the head studs. But I really don't feel like doing that. So I feel like this is my safest bet for what I am, you know, being given at the moment. So yeah, I went ahead and just retorqued them at 80 foot-pounds. So I just let them sit overnight, and while I was at work, and yeah, I came back, I got a little bit of turns out of them, but I'm gonna call it good. I mean, call me crazy in the comments, do what you want, but I feel like this head stud combination with this head gasket is gonna, you know, work wonders for what I want to do with the car. So all right, so after a couple nights of just, you know, hard work and putting my head down and taking care of business, I got the car put back together. The head's in with the new ARP 650 plus studs. Like I did say, I did rewire the map sensor connector because it did have a crimp connection bypass for when I was trying to wire in the 4-bar map sensor. But we're just gonna stick with the OEM sensor for now. So I just rewired it, made it solder instead of using crimp connectors, because I feel like that could have been another reason why the head gasket went, because we weren't getting an accurate boost reading. My tuner was mentioning a boost taper as we got higher in the RPMs. So hopefully that fixes that issue, if there even was a problem. This yellow wire, all this yellow wiring you see, that's all gonna be temporary. That's all just RPM reference for the stratified, or the split-second fuel controller that controls my secondary fuel injection. But yeah, I got it full of just regular mobile 530s, full synthetic, just so we can clean out any of the, you know, contaminated liquids or, you know, oils that were in the oiling system from when the head gasket blew. So we're gonna run this oil for like a day or two, and then I have Mo tool coming in tomorrow. So once I swap in the Mo tool, then I'll do the first data log on, you know, these head studs, and then my wire repair as well. So yeah, I have all the coil packs disconnected right now. I'm gonna prime the system with oil, prime it with fuel, and then we're gonna crank it up and see what happens. Hear that? It's getting quicker because there's oil pressure. Let's start her up. I've actually had the car running for a little over a week. I just wanted to make sure all the kinks were, you know, taken care of, or if there was any problems, they would be addressed. But I've had no issues so far. The only concern that I've ran into is that the Guardian Angel is opening the blow-off valve. I had it set to, well, prior to me getting another revision, the car was making a steady 27 pounds, which I didn't touch the tune, so beforehand it was making 29, 28, but the highest I saw after I fixed that wiring was 27 pounds, so something in that wiring was causing an excess resistance, or, you know, it was just causing a faulty voltage signal to the ECU, so that was probably what blew the head gasket. But yeah, we're getting it all dialed in now. I'm just going out getting some data logs. The Guardian Angel was actually opening the blow-off valve with the second revision after I had re-secured the head with the new head stud. And now we're back up to 29 pounds. I believe it's because I had it set a little bit before 30 pounds, so my tuner, Ryan from Purple Trank, told me to slightly adjust it just so that we can like test and see if it's actually the Guardian Angel protecting it and the car is over boosting, or if I had it misadjusted. So we're gonna find out tonight. Alright, so I understand that this video has kind of been all over the place, but I've just been getting caught up with things, you know, in my daily life. I do have like a full-time job and everything, and all the little things that get in between. But yeah, the car is actually running very well right now. I was having some issues with the boost when I first initially put the new revision on the car. So Just to give you guys a rundown about what happened, let me just kind of go into how it all started when I first ran the car with the original tune that I did not touch, by the way, the tune that was on the car when the head gasket blew. I'll kind of go into that right now. Well, so pretty much how it all, started when I first got the car running again. I didn't touch the tune, like I said, but I did fix that map sensor wiring, and at this point I'm almost certain that that's exactly why the head gasket blew. So beforehand I was seeing, boost figures close to 30 pounds, getting really close to the maximum of this stock map sensor. And I mean, the car, it felt really fast, like really fast. It does now, but at the time I was having issues with knock. We were seeing a lot of timing being taken out in the higher RPM. That led me to believe that something was kind of not right. So anyways, after the head gasket blew, I got the car running again, and immediately the boost figures that I saw were completely different. So I think when I first actually pushed the car with the tune that it had on it, I was just doing data logs so that my tuner can see. But the highest I saw was 26 pounds when I initially first started driving the car. So now the car, and this is after the revision that I got, but now the car makes 29 pounds. But that initial period where I had everything running correctly, the wire was soldered instead of using crimp connectors. Basically, the ECU wasn't getting the correct voltage so that it could determine what the boost was at in the manifold. So yeah, that was my bad. I went to Delicious Tuning when I cut that, and ever since I did that, it has been an ongoing issue. Obviously, we were having incorrect boost measurements. So yeah, now everything is fixed. Now the car is actually running very well now. Besides that overboost issue that I was talking about right now, because beforehand, when the head gasket blew, I had my Guardian Angel set to 33 or 34 psi, because when I went to Delicious Tuning, they had me maxed out on the stock map sensor, but the Guardian Angel was still opening. So that just goes to show you that the map sensor was reading an incorrect voltage from the get-go when I initially had cut it and intercepted it to try to use the 4-bar map sensor at Delicious. So yeah, everything's solved now. I know, you're kind of tired of seeing this car getting taken apart, put back together, and then taken apart again. Now we're back together for the third time, but I'm really confident that this is going to be, it's time to prove itself, and I'm really ready to see if we can actually get some reliable and efficient power out of this car. That's what I want. So thank you guys so much for, still watching the videos, still, supporting me in what I do with the channel. And I'm sorry for the lack of content recently. It feels like I only upload maybe once a month. Just a lot of things get in the way. The car for a while wasn't running, so that left me nothing really to do. But I do have a lot of plans. I'm sure everybody already knows that I have a lot of things that I want to do with this car. Next was going to be the brake system. And then after that is going to be cooling. And then after that is going to be roll cage, and then aero, and there's so many different things, and I can keep going deeper into suspension and chassis rigidity and all of that stuff, and more weight reduction. And I'm so excited to get into all of that, and I hope all of you guys are as stoked as I am to be able to, experience that and be able to, experiment with it at the track. And I'm dying to get back at the track, but I really want to get big brakes before I go back, just because this car is a lot faster than it used to be. And that's something that, some people might be like, oh, whatever, and just send it. But I kind of want to just go in as safe as possible, just because, I don't know, you never know what can happen, and you can never really be too safe. So yeah, thank you guys so much for continuing to support me and the channel. And I hope you guys enjoy what I do. I love what I do. It doesn't really hurt me to see it does hurt me to see the car down, but as long as I can, get it back up and running myself, then, that's all I can ask for. And I'm glad that you guys can come along for the ride with me. So Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.